All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking about real music in real time for real people, just like you right there, just like me right here. Self-quarantine continues. The dentist called and said they don't want to see me. I'm not really bummed out about that. So in this video, I will be talking about Steve Perry and Journey. It's a topic that people tend to want to listen to learn about. I don't know. There's really not that much. People just send me random messages. So, what's Steve Perry eating for breakfast? I'll be like, I don't know. Before I launch into the video, my good friend Peter H. Nilsson, who is currently living in Sweden, who pals around at least maybe via Skype or via other methods with a great American singer by the name of Chris Biano. This album is a work of art. This is great, what I call album-oriented rock music. If you like Toto, Foreigner, Icehouse, stuff like that. 9 immaculate songs on this record, just phenomenal. It's called Little American Dream. Go stream it. Go purchase a hard copy like this here, courtesy of AOR Heaven, who heard this and they had to be able to distribute it. So that's my plug. I know a lot of people don't care about new music, but I continue to carry the torch. Now, Steve Perry, back in 1995-ish, picked up the phone and got his band members together. I believe he called Jonathan Cain first. At least that's what VH1 tells us. There's always more to this stuff, though. During that time period, Journey was doing rehearsals with vocalist Kevin Chalfant, who was in The Storm, 707, a couple of bands, and did some really great solo music. He emerged in the 2000s in another group on the Frontiers label, more or less a project band. Two Fires, I think is the name of it. It's pretty good stuff. One of those two Fires albums is really, really good. And the other one, the production isn't so good. But Kevin, a great singer. And the rumor is that Steve might have gotten word of the fact that Journey was in the midst of doing rehearsals with a new vocalist. Now, at that point, you know, this is when Steve just left the building and didn't give anyone any notice. He's coming off the For the Love of Strange Medicine tour. From people who know the situation really well, I've learned that Steve wasn't all that happy with that tour. He wasn't all that happy with the way he sounded. And another tour hitting the music, playing the music that he had been doing, didn't do wonders for his vocal cords. And so touring again at that point from 1994, and if you look at what's happened since, there's literally been no touring by Steve Perry. Yes, we have Trial by Fire. We have the record label who wanted another album. We have the management of the band who helped put together the album and so forth. That would have been Irving Azoff at the time, as Herbie Herbert let go of the reins. And then, you had the Trial by Fire. You had The Injury, the notorious hip injury, which apparently Steve Perry did have surgery on that. He begged and pleaded with his bandmates over the telephone not to leave him, and to not crack the stone, as he put it. Of course, as we know, the boys eventually recruited Steve Augeri, who had never had any real heavy-duty live touring under his belt. So this was like taking somebody fresh off the bench and making him play 14 innings and expecting fastball after fastball after fastball. And eventually what happens is you throw your arm out, and of course Jerry threw his vocals out. As we know, also, Steve Perry, once he found out about this, even in the VH1 documentary, he basically says he got on his telephone to talk to lawyers. Okay, he lawyered up. And the boys made one of the worst deals in the history of music, so they can continue on with the brand, which, again, the brand is a powerful thing. If you lose the brand in music, it's like if Coca-Cola one day, they said, hey, you can't use Coca-Cola anymore. You can spell it kind of the same, but it's not good. It's going to be Kooky Cola or whatever. And it's not going to sell. People aren't going to want to go and drink it. And Journey still had the Journey name. They had to put Journey with Steve Jerry. They had to put little stickers on the albums and so forth. But Perry made out really, really well with that. And we're here like 20 years plus later. And the reason we're here is because, mainly because the song Don't Stop Believin' is the most downloaded track in the history of digital downloads and continues to be downloaded at just a ridiculous rate. And everybody is fighting for a slice of that pie which is going to go on for decades. And I'm not predicting because I don't know the future, but 100 years from now, who knows what that song is going to be worth as far as revenue, as an eternal, endless revenue stream. Maybe people won't be listening to music anymore. The rate things are going, how the format has deteriorated over time, you might think that, hey, this stuff won't be valuable because nobody will want to listen to it because they're going to all be programmed not to even instinctively want to hear music. But I have a feeling it'll go on for quite some time. So the battle that we're seeing now unfolding in Journey isn't just for who can be in the band, who gets the retirement package and so forth. It has a lot to do with how ginormous this song is and how it affects culture and it's an inspirational song and so forth. And it's owned by three guys. And the three guys are Perry, Sean, and Kane. And they will fight over this until they're all, they've all disappeared from planet Earth. So, when you think about all this stuff and you want to take a side because you like one person more than another, and I said this in my rant video to some degree, it's all three of them. It's all three of them who are fighting. And obviously they don't like one another. I'm just going to put it out there. I don't think they like one another. Now, I think if you ask John Cain, he's going to give you a very diplomatic answer. I think his faith has kind of changed his perspective. I don't know, maybe he might be feeling something on the inside, but his outside, his outer voice will say, well, Steve he went through a lot and, we'd like to make amends. And Perry, I don't think wants to make amends. he doesn't want to. And Neil, I think, went back and forth. I think when Perry came out of retirement and did Traces, Neil was like, hey, let's go get coffee. Come on, we can do this. It'll be great. And tweet after tweet, wouldn't it be awesome? And man, I like Traces, but imagine if I put a little guitar solo on this song and no erasing. It was a good song, but needed a little Neil Sean injection. Crickets. Because Perry, he was on Twitter, but I think he probably had someone doing the tweets. Maybe, maybe not. I don't think he was doing the tweets. Same with Facebook stuff. Maybe he wrote it and then they put it up for him. I don't know. I'm not there to judge, but he wasn't talking about the guys in Journey. And when those interviews, the one he did with Andy Green, and then he did another one with some independent type publication in the UK, and there was some pretty tense moments in those interviews where the questions were being asked, and Perry was like, please don't show me this guy's book. I don't want to have anything to do with this book. Talking about John Cain's book that he wrote. Maybe he just thought Kane was milking the song and taking advantage of it. Maybe he was upset because he couldn't get any royalties off of that book. Ugh, you just don't know. And I'm not throwing Steve under the bus necessarily, but these three guys are going to duke it out, and they're going to have different reactions to things, and I'm judging the reactions. Obviously, Neil and John have reunited to some degree, at least in terms of the legal struggle to keep as much of what they did, for themselves. And Steve, he's doing the same thing. And they're all very strong type A personalities. I don't think you're going to see this ever resolved. It's unfortunate. I wish they'd all just, especially amidst a global crisis like we're in right now, where people are getting sick and some people are unfortunately succumbing to this thing, and it should kind of put your life in perspective just a little bit, guys. Steve, Neil, John, and just say, hey, this ain't worth fighting for. It isn't. I mean, it is and it isn't. It's worth it because you composed it, you wrote it, you did all this stuff, and now you think to yourself, well, someone else is going to end up with all of my hard work. They say songs are like babies. You watch them grow up. They're kids, and they grow older, and then they take on a whole new life and so forth. A lot of good analogies in that. But, are these songs making people happy? Yes. That's the most important thing. Are they making y'all lots of money? Some of them are, yeah. I mean, I know streaming revenue stinks, but if you're downloading because you got to own it, you got to have it, that's where Don't Stop Believin' is. And, having a percentage of what this group is doing seems to be more important than what this group is doing for a high percentage of people. So I know I tried to be clever, and I don't think it worked. But the point I guess I'm trying to make is there'll be no end to this feud. It will continue, and it may get worse before it gets better. If these guys try to move on with a new rhythm section, which I think they're going to, I think they're recruiting or probably working on it, and they're going to have plenty of time, and they can take their time and find the right fit for their band. When they emerge, again, if they start to generate interest and revenue, that's going to just benefit those three guys, because those other two guys are going to be hired hands, and they're going to be paid a much lower amount to be a part of Journey. Unless they go high profile, which I don't think they will. I think they're going to hire high quality musicians, most likely from Nashville. I don't know if they'll be big names. Jason Derlotka was not a big name, but he's got a great voice, and he's got great musical instincts, and he's a good fit for the role that they have him in right now. Of course, there's plenty of speculation. Will Arnell continue with the group? Haven't heard anything either way, so I'm thinking he's still there. So we'll leave it at that. A lot of Journey chat here on the quarantine week. And, if you have any thoughts or you want to contact me, you can join up on Patreon for just $1 a month. That's the minimum you can do. And, in times like these, I don't expect people to do like $10 a month or $50 a month or some silly thing. $1, if I had half my subscribers over on Patreon, I wouldn't, worry about money. Which a lot of people are going to be worried about money moving forward. So let's hope the bailout thing works out today, and the people get the bailout. Like I said in my last video, where Neil was a little ticked off because, the two parties can't work together. So there you have it. A little chronological history of the way I see things with Journey and why all three of these guys are kind of dug in the way they are. You just don't know. You'd have to sit down and give, I'd love to sit down with Steve Perry and just administer sodium pentothal. Say, what do you think of Neil Sean? What do you think of Jonathan Cain? And just to actually hear those reactions, and just tell us what really happened. Tell us all the details. I know I think he wants to continue to be the good guy, like the knight in shining armor, and for a lot of fans, he is. So it's working. But it would be cool to find out, was there a breaking point prior to the hip thing? What happened in 1987 when you walked away? The narrative is you got tired of music, but then you came back in 94 and technically in 96, and little fits and starts. I mean, there are albums that Steve Perry gets studio credits on in the early 2000s. Jeff Golub is a guy, the late great Jeff Golub, guitar player, fantastic guitar player. He was on one of his albums like 2005-ish. So he hadn't completely gone away from music. So that narrative, though, really grabbed hold because it was interview after interview after interview. And honestly, between you and I, that's not exactly what happened. So, and a lot of people don't want to hear that. A lot of people really like the narrative that he created. And, you can live in your own, what do they call that? Your own alternative set of facts. But if you were recording with somebody, you're in the studio and your vocal was on their track, you hadn't completely gotten sick of music. I think you just didn't want to work at that time. You made a great deal with your former bandmates. You could chill out and enjoy your life. And that would be a much more plausible and convincing narrative. And just tell us, hey, I made this great deal in 98. Those guys didn't want me in the group, so I basically bought a third of the band, per se, and I get all of that revenue, and life is good. Even after 20 years of this, it's still good, and I'm happy. Yes, I know Kelly and all of that, and that's all true, and it adds another dimension to this. This is why Steve is looked at as a really amazing man to go into that relationship knowing what he knew about Kelly. So these are all really complicated things. Someone should write a book. Someone should write a real kind of like truth-telling book, the story of Journey or something. Go back to the early days and start, you could do like 50 chapters. It'd be a long book. But I would buy it, read it, and then I'd be reading it on YouTube. And then, people would say, you're not telling... Well, it's in the book. It's in the book, but, it'd have to be somebody who knows the entire story. Herbie Herbert would be the guy probably to write a book. But there are others I know that have been in and out of Journey who would love to write a book. I had heard Nilsson was writing a book, and I think he even told us this a couple of years ago. I don't know if he put the book on hold, but with all this downtime, might be a good time, Neil, to get that book going again. All right, folks, long video, but I know you've got the time. You've got the time, we've got the beer. We've got the vaccine hopefully soon. Something, folks. Pray. If you're a Christian, not a Christian, atheist, whatever faith, pray. Because I want this to end. This is just crazy. All right, folks, thanks for watching. See you soon.